everybody. Welcome to the Moms Making Money Show. I'm super excited about today's, if I could talk, I haven't had enough coffee, but I'm super excited about today's guest. She is my friend. She's from my hometown. Her name is Shannon Dooley. She's a boss mom. She is doing all kinds of incredible things, not just as a business owner, not just as a mom, not just as a wife, but throughout her entire community. Shannon, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. You can tell us a little bit about your business, Stillettos and Spurs, and what you do and how you're making an impact in your community.
Okay, sounds good. Stillettos and Spurs is a pageant coaching business with an emphasis on coaching rodeo queens. That's my background. So I've kind of always had this entrepreneurial spirit ever since I was a kid. I'd have the typical lemonade stand, but then I'd be the kid with like the bazooka horn with some really obnoxious choreographed dance trying to get the cars driving by to stop. And then I'd sell magazine pictures that I'd ripped out. And then my favorite was when I could convince somebody to buy our nutrient-dense, delicious country well water instead of the lemonade at the same price because I knew my profit margin would be 100%. So I've kind of always had that business mind. After that, I had a business called the Super Duper Pooper Scoopers where I hired my best friend and we would go door to door and scoop dog poop for a couple bucks. So owning my own business has been something that has just come naturally to me. It's something I've always wanted to do. I've tried to do the 9 to 5, or I saw in one of your videos, you said you hate the 9 to 5 term, that it should be 8 to 5 because who goes to work at 9? It's so dumb.
Right. We all had to be there by 8 or earlier.
I think they count the lunch hour, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, tried those sort of jobs, had a couple great ones, but still just wasn't my thing. And then I'd always heard that if you can make a living doing something you're passionate about, that's where you're going to find true happiness in life. And so I won't say this wasn't a no-brainer because it definitely came with some questions from myself and other people if it was a good decision to make. But for the most part, I was pretty supported. And just going back to my background and my history, I grew up on a small farm, so I had to get out of bed early in the morning and bottle feed calves and take care of other animals. And, I didn't have the luxury to not do that or they would starve. So I really have to give my mom a lot of credit for instilling that hard work ethic in me. And so growing up on a farm, I started riding horses basically out of the womb by myself at the age of 3, attending and participating in 3-day cattle drives at the age of 3 as well. Competitively, I started riding in horse shows at the age of 6. A couple years later, I added barrel racing and pole bending, and then it just kind of went from there. I dabbled in a bit of everything equestrian related. But rodeo queening wasn't something that crossed my radar much as a kid. The first experience I really remember having with it, I was about 6 years old at our Eastern Idaho State Fair. And I remember the rodeo queens coming in and the world almost just went in slow motion, especially as this one in particular came in her sequin shirt, because you know how little girls are. Well, not just little girls, I'm 35 and I love sparkles, but seeing her come in her sparkles, is that right? It's my favorite color. And just her big, beautiful, vibrant smile and how happy and confident she looked. I turned to my mom and I said, I want to be like that when I'm older. And my mom had no hesitation to say, absolutely not. You're not wasting your talent, your horsemanship ability on being a rodeo queen and just looking pretty and waving at an audience, because she clearly didn't have the knowledge of what it took to be a rodeo queen. And there's always been and still is a stigma that's attached to pageantry in general, and that includes rodeo queening. And so I ended up kind of adopting that mentality and spent most of my youth making fun of rodeo queens more than I did embracing that lifestyle. And it wasn't until I was 14 and I was practicing go tying with a friend who was she is still an extremely amazing horsewoman, very talented. She's extremely intelligent, and she was also a rodeo queen. And it was so hard for me to see how those 3 pieces of the puzzle could possibly fit together, because it just didn't work for me with my mentality of what a rodeo queen was. And so I was lovingly teasing her for whatever reason about this. And her response to me was great, because she just calmly said, Shannon, if you think it's that easy, then why don't you give my next contest a shot? So I was like, all right. So I got my mom's permission. Yeah, right. I'm not one to turn down a dare ever. So I signed up not realizing that it was one of the most prestigious contests in the state at the time, the winner often going on to win Miss Rodeo Idaho. So I showed up completely out of my element. Amie, I was wearing this 1980s, 1990s. You remember like the Western bride look, like with the prairie skirt
and the puffs?
Yeah.
Did you puffs?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the shoulder pads to make your waist look little, but you looked like a man up here. And then the prairie skirt were more like this, and complete with lace-up boots. Like totally did not fit the part, but that's what I showed up in because that's what I thought you were supposed to wear. And then I proceeded to read my speech, which was supposed to be memorized like word for word off of some note cards. The written exam they gave me might as well have been in a foreign language because I think I might have gotten like 2 answers right, and it's because they were true and false, and I had a 50% chance, not because they made any sense to me or had any intelligence about it whatsoever. And then my horsemanship pattern, I just plowed through it on my barrel horse as fast as I could go. And anyone who knows anything about horses and reining specifically knows that a big portion of your score comes from your speed transitions and your control. So obviously I had none of that, and I came in last place, bottom of the barrel, and walked away from there with my cowboy hat tipped low, just extremely humbled. And I also walked away with this newfound respect of what a rodeo queen is and what goes into it, what it takes to become one, how hard they work. And I made some new friends, and this hunger was just ignited in me that I knew wouldn't be satiated until I just excelled at this sport and earned my first title. So within a 5-year period that I competed, I held 18 rodeo queen titles, including Miss Idaho Rodeo USA. But before I could go on to the national pageant, I was 23 and I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest son. And in just about any pageant system, you sign a contract saying that you have never been pregnant and you will not get pregnant during your reign, or you will give up the title. So that's what I had to do, which was fine. I always tell people that my son is a much greater prize than any tiara or, title ever would have been. But I would be lying if I didn't say, especially at that time in my life, that there wasn't this lingering question of what if, and this feeling of embarrassment and almost this feeling of defeat. And so because of that embarrassment, I really stepped back from this world that I love so much. More my own insecurities, felt like people were judging me like I was probably the black sheep of the rodeo queen community and they didn't want anything to do with me. So that was like a painful time for me because those were my people, and so I had to step back from it. And it wasn't for a few years that I really started engaging again. My mom got asked to judge a contest and one of the other judges backed out. So it was kind of like a last minute decision to throw me in because they didn't have anybody else. And from there, I started getting asked to judge more contests. A couple of mom asked me to work with their girls. And at that time, it wasn't a business for me at all. I just enjoyed giving back to the sport that had given me so much and helping these girls because I knew for me that Rodeo Queen had instilled these skills and lifelong values that I still carry with me to this day at 35 years old. So it was very gratifying knowing that I was helping these girls, and still is, outside of the Rodeo Queen arena as well, far into their future. So you told me to give a short summary of how it all began. So there's my long, short answer. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I was visiting with a pageant coach friend. She just coaches regular pageants one day, which in the pageant world is very normal. A lot of people hire pageant coaches, but you don't see it quite as much in the rodeo queen world. There's a few of us, definitely not a saturated area. And so she was like, why are you not charging for this? Like, you're taking away your energy and your time from your family. And yes, you're helping these girls and it's a nice experience and you feel gratified by it. But what are you really, getting out of it? You could be helping your family with this. And so at this point, I'd had 3 kids. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. And I had just been contacted by the Idaho Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame Incorporated, and they wanted to include me in their wall of youth for my contributions as a rodeo queen when I was younger, and then just the way I was still giving back. And so it was cool. It was really cool. It was one of those moments, which I think anybody, but business owners in particular, like you just have this moment where you're like, wait, me? Like, I don't think you messaged the right person. Do you know who I am? You know what I mean? Just like that self-doubt. And in fact, I messaged her and was like, do you know my history? Like, I'm not so sure you want my face on that wall. And a rodeo queen is supposed to be a role model, and those insecurities about having the baby and everything. And she was great and just told me that she had more respect for me because of that. And I have to give a lot of credit to her for boosting my self-confidence again. Hi, Julie Weeks. And just making me feel confident enough to do it. So between her and then this pageant coach friend of mine, just kind of giving me that push, that's when I decided, all right, I give it a shot. So I started to put the word out there and let people know that this was something I was offering. And I can still remember the first girl who was willing to hire me and pay me for my services. And I was so excited and so stoked. And then as the time neared and the morning specifically came, I called my mom like in a panic. And I was like, Mom, I can't do this. Like, what was I thinking? Who do I think I am? Like, I'll help her, but I am not going to take her money, because what if she fails miserably at this and it's my fault and I'll feel guilty, and just all those self-doubts. And so she was just like, calm yourself down. And she's like, quote unquote, you're crazy if you don't do this. And so, I listen to my mama. Anybody who knows Mama Renee knows that you don't argue with her. So I did it. And that was the best decision I could have made. Like, I will encourage any business owner to just dive head first into, or feet first. What's the expression? Feet first, head first. I don't know that it matters. Just dive. Just get in the pool and dive. And just make it happen, because it's like anything else, like becoming a mother, starting a business, competing in a fitness contest, whatever it may be, you're never going to be 110% ready. And if you wait until you are, it's never going to happen. It's just not realistic. And so I'm very grateful for my mom for giving me that push, because by the end of that hour session, the girl was leaving and she gave me the biggest hug and said that I had helped her more in that hour than anyone had ever helped her in her rodeo queen career, and immediately booked 2 more sessions. And that was just the best feeling. And, the validation, I guess, that I needed, that this might just be the right path. And so that was huge for me. And it's just gone on from there. I've helped coach girls from the local to the state to the national level, and it's been amazing.
Yes. So how did that girl end up doing?
Well, she did really well.
See? So I think you were spot on with that, with thinking about like, who am I? What am I? Like, I can't take this girl's money. And you're so, like, one thing, it's super funny. I was talking to one of my coaches this morning, and this is a little off topic, but it really does all kind of tie together. And we were talking about, like, what's one thing that as a coach, like, so for you, that you think that you would do differently as, as a mentor, as a pageant coach, whatever, like, so maybe even think about this. What's that one thing that you would do differently than maybe coaches that you've seen in the past, or people who have mentored you in the past? Like for me, and I know this is the same for you, which is why I bring it up, it's that you actually care in your heart and your soul, and like you're vested in their outcome. Like, obviously if she got up there and like tripped and fell or something, like, that would be different, because that does happen. Coming from a pageant world myself, which is super funny, because I don't ever talk about that. But
I did not know that about you. How did I not know that? We need to talk after this.
So like one thing that, like a lot of people, they get out there, they teach, they put their content into the world. Mallory says, good morning, Mallory. They put their content into the world, and then they just kind of set you free. But I feel like, and I'm not saying this has anything to do with coming from a pageant background, because I know, like, when I did the Miss Idaho Falls pageant, my coach, I can't even remember her name because she never followed up with me. Like, nothing, like none of that. But she did let me borrow her shoes for the swimsuit competition. So that was kind of nice. And so it's kind of like, you do care. You want, like, more than anything in your heart for your girl to get up there and win. And that's even the same in business. Like, for my clients, I want them to get out there in the world and win, like with their business, with their momming, with whatever. So, so for me, it's like, I want to make a statement, that, and I know this relates to you, that you just have to get out there and care. You have to give a shit, right? Like you have to. Otherwise, you're just, I don't know, another number, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Yep. And I like what you said about just caring about these girls. And I think that if we take that insecurity and that fear and that vulnerability that we feel in the beginning of a business, and we own that and we're authentic in it, and we relate to these girls, that we can carry that over and turn it into empathy and compassion. You asked one thing that makes me different, and I don't know that I'm necessarily 100% different from coaches. I know some really good coaches that, you know, I admire and I emulate and want to be like, but I know there are some coaches that it's a little bit about them, and you know, they give of themselves, and then, like you said, then they're just done. Like, they take your money and they're done. And that's a really hard thing for me to do, because these girls become like little sisters or daughters and family, and I want to see them succeed. And I don't know that I necessarily want to see them win. I mean, of course I do, but I put up a post recently on my Facebook page about what did I title it? That losers are winners. Because I believe that there is so much that comes out of losing, quote unquote. You know, you learn how to fail with dignity. You learn how to eventually win with grace and really appreciate that. You learn how to be a good sport. You learn how to work harder. All these great things come out of it. And so I think, again, that goes back to you and I having that personality of just wanting to see our girls succeed, because for me, this reaches far beyond the rodeo arena or the rodeo queen stage, because I know that the skills I carry with me today that I developed from rodeo queening, I know that these girls will carry with them. I mean, I aced every job interview I ever had, you know, just huge things. And so that's really what it's about for me. It's not necessarily about these girls winning, although that's great. And obviously that's our ultimate goal in the moment. But long term, I just really want to see them succeed in life and be confident and happy.
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned being, you know, a good sport and being a good loser, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because, you know, whether you play softball, whether you're on the dance team, whether you play basketball, whether, you know, you barrel race the horses, whatever that is, it's not highly probable that every single time you're going to win. But it's like, now you see, and there's so many different takes on this. So, I mean, I'll try not to even open the can of worms. Now you see, you know, you have that quote unquote pageant mom, you know, like those dance moms that you see on TV, and you have like all these, you know, stage moms, I guess you'd say, for every single sport. And they get so pissed off. My kid needed an extra 30 seconds on the field. My kid needed this. And if my kid was out there and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, what are you teaching your kids? It's okay to lose. Like, you're not going to win every game. You're not going to win everything in life. You're not going to get every job you apply for. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get every house that you put an offer in on. Like, it's just part of it. So it's like, if your realtor calls you and says, hey, you know, that house sold to somebody else who was offering an extra $30,000 above the asking price, and they're paying cash, what are you going to do? Lay down in the driveway and have a temper tantrum?
Right.
Like,
call mom.
Yeah, call your mom and she's going to come over and, you know, wave her stick at the realtor. Like, it teaches us valuable life lessons, and that even carries over into business. Like, not every product I've ever, or, you know, course I've ever launched was a huge success. And so I have to, you know, take that, like, yeah, it kind of stung a little bit at first, you know, like, even when, going to, when I was doing pageants, the last pageant I did was the Miss Idaho Falls pageant, part of the Miss America chain, you know, or franchise. I didn't win, you know, like, and that was okay.
And what did you learn from that?
I learned that I could have been way, way, way more prepared and way, way, way less interested in my boyfriend. That's the honest truth. I mean, lots of lessons. You know, so it's like, you know, that kind of lesson, and, you know, giving that kind of mentoring with that positive spin, like, okay, even if you get runner up, even if you get 5th place, you know, getting out there and doing it is a whole, you know, that's something to be said, you know, all in itself, you know, whether it's a fitness competition or, you know, these pageants. And like, I think pageantry gets a bad name, just like being part of an MLM gets a bad name, you know, all that kind of stuff, because people, one, they don't understand, like you said, like, they don't understand all the hard work that goes into it. They don't understand what it's actually about. Like, most of these pageants, like, I won a scholarship doing the, what the heck pageant was it? I'm drawing a total blank. It was like, oh my God, I can't remember. I can see like their logo. It was like America's National Teenager. That's what it was. I was at the state competition, the Idaho National Teenager, and I won a pageant, or a pageant. I won a scholarship for $1,000 to a school in Idaho. I didn't go to school in Idaho, so I didn't end up using it, but I still won a college scholarship. Like, that's kind of a big deal. And people think it's just about like, because they see that like that show that's on TV with the little girls and how they get like the fake teeth and all the makeup and all the fluffy hair. I've never been to a pageant like that. I've never seen a pageant like that. And as we grow, they're way definitely not like that,
No, yeah, there's different ones. In fact, my little girl has done a couple. In fact, for the Miss Idaho Falls, they had, I think it was called Junior Gym Program, but you have to sign in the contract. I think it was that one anyway, that you signed in the contract that it's that you acknowledge that it's not a glitz pageant and they don't want the girls to look like they're 35 when they're 6. That's just not, I guess it's reality for some pageants and whatever, to each their own, but yeah, that's not the case for all of them. And talking about scholarships, that's huge. My mom was at the fair last week. We had our state fair and she was at some event, and she and a couple other rodeo queen moms, she still considers herself a rodeo queen mom even though she's the rodeo queen grandma now, but they were sitting in front of these girls. Oh, it was at the rodeo. I think it was at the rodeo, whatever. There was an announcer and he said, how many rodeo queens does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the girls behind them said, none, they're all too dumb. And my mom posted about it on Facebook. I wasn't with her. And my first reaction was to laugh, because there are more rodeo queens that I know that go on to have their PhDs, their master's degrees, whatever it may be, that are paid for from these scholarships that they won. And I'm thinking, okay, like, I don't know your situation, but I, have a pretty strong feeling that you're probably not someone who has a PhD. If you're going to college or you went to college, you probably had to get loans and pay for it that way, which is fine. Most of us do. But, don't sit there and talk crap on something that is so great and benefits so many girls. My good friend Hunter Rackham, who is part of our Stillettos and Spurs team, she ended up taking home $30,000 from rodeo queening. $30,000. That's huge, So if people want to make fun of it, go ahead. But we're the ones that are sitting pretty.
Yeah, I just think there's like an overall misconception about it, and I think in all like Hollywood fairness, I think that movie, that Miss Congeniality movie, did a little bit. I mean, they totally hyped up like some of the ditzy, whateverness, and they put that in there because that's the preconceived notion. But I think they also did a little bit to kind of help debunk some of that stuff. I mean, not that neither one of us have ever been in that situation where, they had that evil lady, that was trying to put the stuff in the tiara, like that kind of stuff we've never seen. But like ultimately, like, it kind of put a little bit of light anyways, while still poking a little bit of fun on the industry. It put a little bit of light into perspective, like, oh, it's not just a bunch of ditzy girls getting together, and it's not a booty show. They're out there just flaunting in their in their bathing suits. That was the most terrifying thing that I've ever done.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, my hat is off to you. Major respect.
Like, I don't think I would ever do it
even like my mom and I going into rodeo queening and just, I'll admit being completely ignorant, not knowing what went into it, and having that preconceived notion that rodeo queens couldn't ride and that they were ditzy and, all of those things. And then me competing in that first contest is, similar to that movie. You realize, whoa, like, huge wake up call. I had no idea. Like, this takes a lot of work.
It does. And a lot of preparation. And for some pageants, not just anybody can enter. It's not open for everybody. You have to meet certain like scholastic requirements, like for the Idaho National Teenager, I think it was like a 3.5 GPA or higher.
Oh,
you had to be, because it was a scholarship program. So, that's funny. I like I often sometimes sit with people and debunk it, and they're like, well, how do you know? I'm like, oh, I've been in a pageant or two in my life, whatever.
I did not know that about you, but it actually explains so much. You're so articulate, and there's like a whole list I could go down that I'm like, oh, check. She got that from pageants.
Yeah. And it's super funny because like you learn a lot of different things, like, and I know you're going to talk about this because, I didn't even introduce you properly. That you're actually, you're a pageant coach and an ambassador. Oh, and by the way, you guys, she's also a spokesmodel. But like, there's a lot of things that you learn about showing up, whether it's for a pageant interview or a job interview or a college interview, whatever that looks like. And I remember, like, this is one thing, and it might sound silly, that stuck with me, is never going into an interview like with your nails all a hot mess, like with all the colors chipped up, like not to say that they have to be like French tip manicured, whatever, but if like all your nail polish is like chipping off, just take it off.
Yeah.
And have nothing instead of like looking all a mess. Like I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. It really, whether it actually speaks to your character or not, it looks like it does, like, do we want to pick her for this job? Do we want to pick her to hold this title? Is she too lazy to take care of her nails? What is that going to equate to when she's working for us or, carrying this title? So I totally get that. In fact, in rodeo queen pageants during the modeling portion, and for those of you who aren't aware, because I get this question all the time, like, what does a rodeo queen contest consist of? It's pretty much the same thing as a regular pageant. We have modeling in a dress. Our talent is horsemanship. In a lot of them, there's a written exam where we have to have equine rodeo knowledge. There's an onstage question or 3, and then there's a personal interview as well. I feel like I'm leaving something out, but anyway, so there's a lot to it. And with the modeling portion, you bringing up the nails reminded me of this, but you're supposed to make the bottom of your boots black. And I actually, when I was competing, had judges ask me to step up out of their stand-up, out of the interview chair, and turn around and show my boots to them so they could see that if I had actually taken the time to do the little details, because really they add up. And, if I didn't, I'd get marked down for it. And if I did, then I was like, yes, and you saying too, that the biggest thing that you learned from losing, quote unquote, Miss Idaho Falls, was that you learned you could have prepared more. And I always say that it's not necessarily the girl who will be the best queen that wins a rodeo queen pageant or any pageant. It's the girl that goes in the most prepared and paying the most attention to detail, like her nails and her boots, as silly as that seems. Right. She might not be the best horseback rider, but it's those little tiny points that add up. Yeah, absolutely. And like, showing that she was willing to be coachable throughout the process of learning whatever that process is. I think employers look for that too. Obviously I'm a huge advocate of doing what you want and being an entrepreneur, but you still have to have, a framework. You still have to have best practices. You still have to, have a direction and have some sort of a plan, right? Like, right. Even if you are like working 100% on like the woo-woo manifestation wave, like you still have to know which direction you want to go, right? So, having a plan helps, and being prepared with that plan, and it's all important. It's so important. Yeah, okay. It is.
I want you to tell us a little bit. So you wrapped up a lot of like your objections, some of that self-doubt, some of those like harsh lessons and realities that kind of came up as you got going. Tell us a little bit about like when you were starting your business and a little bit about your business. So I know that we know that you do pageant coaching and rodeo pageant coaching. Tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like for you. And also, you guys, Shannon has a really cool gift for us. So we're going to talk about that as we wrap up here in just a few minutes.
Okay. So all of the different segments that go along with rodeo queening, I will coach girls on all of that. They have to give, sometimes it's a prepared speech, sometimes it's an impromptu one, but when it's prepared, sometimes I'll have girls hire me to write their speech for them on the topic that they're given. I also I do the interview coaching for my rodeo queen girls, but then I've moved that over into the business world as well, because it goes hand in hand, really. You're just how you come across that first impression. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Right. And so much of that happens in an interview room when you're trying to get a job. And I keep saying and I know my girls watching this, they're going to be like, oh, she would be so mad at me if I was saying over and over.
I say it all the time.
I do too, but it's a filler word and not okay in interviews. So now that I'm talking about interview and I'm like, anyway. So I coach girls for, or I guess men too. I haven't, but I would coach them for job interviews as well. So it's kind of this big spectrum. I do it online. So I'm currently coaching a girl in Washington. We're getting ready to do a clinic, and we have girls coming from every state and Canada coming to learn from us. And so that's been the coolest thing, is just seeing this progress and be able to do big things like that. And then, as you mentioned, I have kind of like a side hustle to my side hustle, which really has just fallen into my lap as I've learned to brand myself and market myself and put myself out there. I've been asked to participate in runway fashion shows. In fact, I just got back from Jackson Hole doing one, and then I did a couple photo shoots while I was there too. I'll have designers or just people who own boutiques send me free stuff and I can keep it as long as I post about it on social media. Some of them will pay me to post about it on social media. And so that's been really cool. I'm being featured in 2 different magazines in December for the National Finals Rodeo. So all of this has come from knowing how to brand myself, which is so important, I think, in my field, because, I mean, it really is in any field, but my business is a little bit different because unlike a personal trainer or a health coach or somebody who owns a clothing line or something like that, I can only market to a small number of people. Not everyone needs a rodeo queen coach. Everybody has a body, and most people want to make it healthy, and most people want to clothe it. So hopefully. So, those people can market to just about everyone. But for me, it's not such a broad range of people. And so I've had to get really good about using social media to put myself out there and say, hey, here I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I do. And from that has just come a lot of opportunities that I'm super grateful for, and just feel really lucky. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It totally does. And I love that you brought up, that you had to have a strong brand. It's super funny because the last, week and a half or so, I've been talking to my communities about branding, and our branding course is now available for self-study at like a ridiculous low price, right? And so it's funny that you bring that today, that, having to build your brand and build yourself, like you as your brand, that was so important to have success in your business. And I think a lot of people actually overlook that. They think like, oh, I'm with this, MLM, or, oh, I'm, doing this thing. And they just kind of brush it off. But for you, like, your brand is so strong, and people are like so super attracted to that. And it's so clear, like what what you do, that they're like, oh yeah, she's the one. I want her to be my pageant coach. I want her to be my interview coach. Like, and it makes such a difference, but that's what's attracting your people to you,
Yeah. And you have to remember too, that you cannot discriminate against who you market to. Had I done that and not put myself out there to everyone, then I wouldn't have had these other opportunities that really don't relate to rodeo queening or pageants fall into my lap. But, that's been another source of income that has been awesome for our family.
Right. But first you niched down and you found that. And then, somebody's like, look at this amazing pageant coach who was a pageant girl, who was a rodeo queen. She's our person. Like, maybe your ideal client is also their ideal client. So it was like the perfect like match. But had you not put yourself in that brand, in that niche, they maybe never would have found you.
Yeah. So true.
So it's kind of funny how, everybody's like, pitch to your niche, and then people are like, no, I can help everybody, like you're not, like for you started pitching to rodeo queens. Now you've expanded that a little bit, speaking to other pageant girls. But at first, that's how you got known. That's how you gained your traction, by being very, very specific. And then all the rest of it kind of comes around. And I think a lot of people tend to overlook that as something of value. So that's great. I want to have you tell us before we wrap up here, because obviously we could, Shannon's my friend, so we could actually sit here and talk all morning, right, you guys? But I know she's busy and has some things to do. But tell us a little bit about your free gift, because this is really super, super awesome, you guys, and it's only for a limited time. So make sure that you get make sure you take advantage of this, because this is really, really, this is an epic. This one's epic. So tell us a little bit about it, Shannon.
So I've just decided to give away a 1-hour coaching session. I'm also a certified development life coach. So whether it's a rodeo queen coaching session, a pageant coaching session, just a life coaching session, or if you have a job interview coming up, I can help with that. So my sessions are an hour long. Like I said, I can do it online. We can do it in person, through email, whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm offering that for free. So if you comment on this post between now, you don't even have to be catching the video live, but if you comment between now and Friday at, we'll say 6 p.m., I will then do a drawing for someone to win that free session.
Nice. Holy smokes. All right. So get your comments up here, and Shannon will announce the winner. We'll collaborate and see who the winner is, and I'll make a post about it too, so that way you don't miss it, and we'll be sure to tag you as well. That's so awesome and so generous. I'm like super excited about it. I'm going to apply. I made a comment already. Also, you guys, I want you guys to be sure that you hop over and check out Shannon's website. It's stillettosanspurs.com, and it's not and if you're catching this just on the podcast. It's just the letter N between stilettos and spurs. Shannon, thank you so much for hopping on here today and making me reveal to the world that I was part of the pageant industry. And not that I have no shame in that. It just feels like a lifetime ago. And it's super funny because I actually now I have a fly flying around.
Because it left me, it must have gone to yours.
Yes. It's super funny because I met a girl back when I was doing health coaching, and she did a Mrs. pageant and she won, and she was beautiful. She was, she had an amazing platform, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, oh, I didn't even realize I kind of just that they even do still pageants for, us older women, I guess, if you will, and it was like, oh, I should do another one. And then it just kind of went right out of my head. So maybe I'll have to get back into that, especially now that they're not doing swimsuit competitions anymore.
They still are in the misses, at least for now. So, but maybe
I'll wait till they get rid of that.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, thank you so much for having me. You know that I adore and love everything about you, from the person you are to what you do with business. You're so business savvy, and I was just completely honored that you would ask me to do this. So thank you for having me on today.
I will. And Shannon actually is a little bit like me in that she has 2 businesses. So she'll be back, and we're going to talk about her other business next time, because she's very multi-passionate, and her other business is actually really super awesome too. So if you happen to get on the phone with Shannon and you are the winner of that free coaching session, be sure to ask her about it, because it's really super awesome. But I adore you, Shannon. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to our girlies here and to enlighten us on all things pageantry, and how wonderful the industry actually is and can be, and how that does actually carry over into your real life, if you will,
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much. And be sure that you guys, if you are catching this on the podcast, be sure you leave a review. And that's everything, you guys. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.